Oh yeah, my name's Lee. I'm just doing this video because first and foremost, I think the work that Anna is doing on this page is amazing. I think the fact that people are speaking out from all sorts of walks of life is significant, and it's also important. I think for me the difficult thing has been the way in which this has affected just everybody from every walk of life, and the way in which the vast majority of people are believing things and almost going along with things they know not to be true. I'm in a situation where we literally moved house probably 2 or 3 days before lockdown. We must have been one of the last people to move house before the lockdown took place. And as a result, it's probably changed quite a lot of our habits anyway. But one of these is that we just switch the TV off. We don't watch the BBC News. I literally think that, such as BBC and Sky, it's frightening the amount of stuff that's on there and the way in which it changes by day to day, the way in which we look at reporting cases. One thing that gets me is just the intellectual dishonesty, the way in which we can be having the government come out and say that we need to wear masks, not because there's any evidence that masks are going to stop you from getting COVID-19, but because we want to get industry back to work again. We want to get people confident to go out to the shops. And then 2 weeks later, you've got people in the shops who have obviously heard this message, who are well aware of this message, who are then turning around and saying things like, you're putting us at risk. Bearing in mind, we all know that every time you open a box of masks, it says it doesn't protect you from anything. Yet people believe the lies. And it's almost like this lie seems to have got away with itself to a certain extent. The lack of any form of qualitative evidence explaining what an impact this is really having on society as far as numbers is concerned doesn't exist. On the one hand, the fact that the deaths in the UK and Australia and Scotland and around the world are tracking the average life expectancy and not really having an impact on the life expectancy figures. And in actual fact, in some cases, like for example in Australia, like for example in Scotland, the life expectancy of somebody with COVID is actually higher. Not because it makes you live longer, but because it's not having an impact. It's only taking the very, very elderly and the very, very infirm. Yet we are changing society for the sake of this virus. We're in a situation where we talk about, if we can save one person, then it's safe. Yet by that logic, we'd be taking our cars off the road. But we don't take our cars off the road because of the huge impact that makes. Yet we're in a situation where we're trying to save these phantom people that are really ill already, that are in some cases probably not going to make it 6 months. We know that to be the case in the vast majority of cases. And there are tragedies that don't book that trend, but we know that to be the case because life expectancy figures aren't changing on account of this virus. Yet we're robbing our children of opportunity. We're robbing our children of jobs that they're going to be having in the future. We're robbing our children of their education and their hope for a future where you can go on a date without wearing a mask. And what is occurring is just complete and total lunacy. This has caused me early on in lockdown to begin my own YouTube channel. You want to check it out. It's called Lee of the Stone. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the figures. I'm looking at where things are. I'm looking at it from a church point of view. I'm a Christian. I cannot understand why the church is closed. I can't understand why a group of people that believe in the sovereignty of God, that God chooses the moment that I die, are in a situation where they're living in fear. So my particular group, what I would class as my people, are God's people. Yet every single section of society seems to have been hoodwinked by this. And those that speak out are tinfoil hats. So if you're in a situation where you're looking at a particular part of this narrative and you're looking at a particular part of this debate, just by looking at it and just by coming out and saying, you know what, I think there's something in that, you're classed as a kook, because YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, they align their what they think is right and what they think is wrong, their terms. They align the way of acting and what they take off and what they put as false news. They align it with the World Health Organization. But the health organisation is run by somebody who has given money to every single individual and organisation that's got absolutely anything whatsoever to do with COVID. Chris Whitty, you look at Neil Ferguson, you look at Wuhan University, you look at the London School of Economics, the London School of Hygiene, the BBC, the Guardian. every single one of these organisations, anybody that's making a vaccine, who's researching a vaccine, who's advising on a vaccine, who's advising policy, who's telling us we need all to get vaccinated, even though this virus is something that 99.9% of people will survive. All of these organisations, every single one of them has had money from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And that just so happens that the person who's really got the reins of the World Health Organization is Bill Gates. And it just so happens that all our social media, their terms of use are that you're not allowed to contradict the World Health Organization. Not only that, a group of doctors 2 or 3 weeks ago comes out in the States, I believe on the steps of the Court of Justice in Washington, I think that's where it was. And these people have been doctors for 20 years plus in some cases. And they come out and they start saying that there is a cure for COVID. But the thing is, it's cheap and nobody's going to make money off it. And what happens? Every single instance of that video, my YouTube channel, these videos are taken down and they're erased from the narrative.